the proposed repeal of the health care law. That will begin 7 hours of general debate. Tomorrow, we take you now live to the House floor here on C-SPAN.
House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., January 18, 2011. I hereby appoint the Honorable K. Michael Conaway to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Father Coughlin.
Gracious Lord, you forgive sinners and accept us as your very own. As they seek to perform works of lasting justice for your people, members of Congress realize they are called to be leaders in understanding and reconciliation. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. pleaded with this nation to find ways to build bridges of mutual respect within the diversity of this body of people. Lord, help this Congress to construct renewed trust and draw together in establishing your beloved community here while calling upon your holy name, both now and forever. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The pledge will be led by the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Womack.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair will entertain 1-minute speeches. What purpose the gentleman from Arkansas rise?
Seeking consent to address the House to revise and extend my remarks.
Say again. The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to remember the brave service of Sergeant Ethan C. Harden of Fayetteville, Arkansas, who died in service to this great nation on January 7, 2011 in Logar Province, Afghanistan. Sergeant Harden served with B Company, 2nd Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment of the 10th Mountain Division, a battalion affectionately known as the Wild Boars, fitting for this proud Arkansan who hailed from Razorback country. Nicknamed Easy for his easygoing personality, Sergeant Harden was also a veteran of the conflict in Iraq. Sergeant Harden was the product of a loving Christian family and a 2004 graduate of Fayetteville Christian School. His dedication to God and country defined him as both man and soldier. While we mourn with his parents, Tom and Seal Harden, we celebrate the life of this American patriot, knowing he has eternal life through the grace and glory of Almighty God. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Ohio rises.
Request permission to address the House.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Everyone knows that insurance companies make money not providing health care. After all, they're in the insurance business. They're not charities. With as many as 129 million Americans suffering from pre-existing conditions, insurance companies want Congress to repeal health care reform. The provisions which require covering people with pre-existing conditions would eventually cut into insurance company profits. Repeal means Americans will continue to pay more for insurance, but get less. That is, if they can afford health insurance in the first place. The very idea of health care reform, solely within the context of a for-profit system, has been more than problematic. Today, 50 million Americans have no health insurance. What are we going to do for them? Rather than waste time on debating how much reform insurance companies will permit, if any, it's time to change the debate. It's time to end the for-profit health care model. It's time for a not-for-profit health care, single-payer, universal Medicare for all, with an emphasis on wellness and personal responsibility. More about that tomorrow.
Gentleman's time has expired. What person, gentleman from South Carolina, rise? Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, South Carolinians are still celebrating Wednesday's inauguration of Governor Nikki Randhawa Haley of Lexington as the first female governor in the 341-year history of our state. She is the second Indian American governor in American history, in the tradition of Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, recognizing the growing significance of Indian Americans in American society. Our family is very grateful for the swearing-in of my oldest son, Alan Wilson of Lexington, as America's youngest Attorney General. His prosecution experience will serve the people of South Carolina well. The inauguration was also historic for being the first all-Republican inauguration in over 130 years, with Lieutenant Governor Ken Ard, Secretary of State Mark Hammond, Treasurer Curtis Loftus, Comptroller General Richard Ekstrom, Superintendent of Education Mick Zase, Adjutant General Bob Livingston, Jr., America's only popularly elected Adjutant General, and Commissioner of Agriculture Hugh Weathers. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from North Carolina, rise.
I ask permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today we begin debate on the Republicans' unfortunate effort to repeal health care reform. I pray that this debate today is civil and that it is respectful. As you know, Mr. Speaker, and many of our colleagues know, I served as a judge in my state for many years, and I understand what it means to be objective and to have a fair debate. And I know that there are usually two sides to every issue. But when it comes to repealing the reforms that Democrats have passed, I just can't figure it out. Why would Republicans add $230 billion to the deficit when their mantra has been deficit reduction? Why would Republicans force small businesses to pay higher taxes after fighting for cuts? Why would Republicans take away a parent's right to cover their adult children? And why in the world would Republicans make seniors pay more for their prescription drugs? I just don't understand. It appears to me that this may be partisan politics. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. What person, gentleman from Texas, rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, it's the shooter, not the gun, not the bullets, not rejection by the Army, not the Internet, not radio talk shows, not the political climate, not people assembling to protest, not the press, and not bold speech that is to blame for the crimes by the terror from Tucson. Hold the assassin accountable. He and he alone should be judged. In this frenzy furrow to make excuses and to find other causes for the crime, Congress itself would do well not to do violence against our Constitution. Those elites, even those in Congress that think they and they alone are now authorized to regulate speech, press, assembly, and the right to bear arms, should understand they cannot use this assault and murder as an excuse to steal away the rights of citizens, all under the false illusion of making us safe from killers. The Constitution should not be imprisoned, for it is the terror of Tucson that should be locked in chains. And that's just the way it is.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Virgin Islands. Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. There will be no repeal of the health care reform law, so let's be clear. The agenda that the Republican leadership has set for this week's floor activity and the committee work that follows is nothing more than an opportunity to bad talk and fuel the misinformation about the Affordable Care Act, which is a good law that will help over 30 million people be healthier, create millions of jobs, make our country more productive and stronger, and reduce the deficit. And so I'm urging all of my colleagues, but especially those on the other side of the aisle, in the name of collegiality and honesty with the public we serve, to drop the charade and let us use the time the people of this country have hired us for to work together to create more jobs, to make sure the health care law is implemented properly, to save the homes of families, and to create an educational system that will once again make our children the first in the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the Chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the yeas and nays are ordered, or on which the vote incurs objection under Clause 6 of Rule 20. Record votes on postponed questions will be taken after 6:30 p.m. today. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi rise? Seek recognition.
I move to suspend the rules and adopt Senate Concurrent Resolution 2.
The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 2, concurrent resolution authorizing the use of the rotunda of the Capitol for an event marking the 50th anniversary of the inaugural address of President John F. Kennedy.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Harper, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Davis, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi.
I ask that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
I rise today in support of Senate Concurrent Resolution 2, authorizing the use of the rotunda of the Capitol for an event on January the 20th, marking the 50th anniversary of the inaugural address of President John F. Kennedy. Mr. Speaker, presidential inaugural addresses are always historic and are often some of the most memorable events during different eras of our country's history. We can recall Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address in 1861, President Franklin Roosevelt's inaugural address in 1933, and of course President Ronald Reagan's inaugural address in 1981, among many others, as addresses that inspired this nation at particular moments of importance to our country. In 1961, President Kennedy's inaugural address rightly challenged us to ask what we can do for our country and not what our country can do for us. As people across this land did 50 years ago, so we must continue to do so now. Mr. Speaker, I too believe we should look for inspiration to President Kennedy's eloquent address given 50 years ago. I support this resolution authorizing use of the rotunda and urge all my colleagues to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from California, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to support this concurrent resolution to allow for the use of the rotunda in recognition of the 50th anniversary of President Kennedy's inaugural address. You may have read this morning's Washington Post front page story declaring that 82% of Americans think the tone of our nation's political discourse is negative. At a time when the majority of Americans hold our political discourse in such low regard, there couldn't be a more timely or necessary opportunity to revisit the inaugural address that inspired our country 50 years ago. The speech called for unity, for respect of opposing views, and for commitment to public service, all at a time of great change and challenge for the United States. It was a call for everyone to work together, to do their part in making America and the world a better place. The words that were spoken on January 20th, 1961, still ring true to this day. In the words of President Kennedy, and I quote, "So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Let both sides explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems which divide us." Unquote. And Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, the President's inaugural address sought to challenge our country and its leaders, and it set standards. It set standards that still must guide our political discourse and ourselves, particularly with its closing lines. And I quote again, "Ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love." Unquote. I hope all of my colleagues will continue to work together to answer President Kennedy's call. and I urge all members to support this resolution. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of her time. Gentleman from Mississippi.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire from the gentlelady from California if she has any other speakers on this matter?
Gentlelady has any other speakers?
Apparently not, Mr. Speaker. We did have a few members who were hoping to be here in time, but they may have been delayed.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I yield back as well and certainly urge an aye vote.
All time having been yielded back, the question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to Senate Concurrent Resolution 2? All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the concurrent resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
I move to suspend the rules and adopt H.R. 292.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 292, a bill to amend Title 44 United States Code to eliminate the mandatory printing of bills and resolutions by the Government Printing Office for the use of the House of Representatives and Senate.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Harper, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Davis, will each control 20 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi.
I ask that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I will yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from New York.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding and for his assistance in bringing this bill to the floor. Mr. Speaker, our national debt just recently broke $14 trillion. It's well past time for Washington to get serious about cutting spending, and that effort starts right here in our own House. With this in mind, Speaker Boehner proposed a measure to cut every member's budget by 5%, and in a 410-13 vote, the measure saved $35 million. Easily passed. It's called leading by example. Another simple way to continue this process is passing legislation that I brought up in the last Congress, which became part of the U-Cut initiative. It gives which gives all taxpayers the ability to vote on what federal spending they want Congress to cut. When a member of Congress introduces or originally co-sponsors a bill, we automatically receive multiple printed copies of the legislation, regardless if we've asked for them. When the health care bill was introduced, the Government Printing Office printed and delivered over 100,000 pieces of paper to the original co-sponsors alone. That's just one single piece of legislation we're talking about. And at the start of the Congress, the Small Business Paperwork Mandate Elimination Act, which repeals the onerous 1099 provision of the health care bill, won the support of 245 original co-sponsors, all of which who will automatically receive multiple printed copies of the bill. For each bill introduced, there are between 300 and 475 copies printed. This overprinting of bills is wasteful, inefficient, at a time when we need to be tightening our budgetary belts and looking for greater efficiencies. In the 111th Congress, nearly 14,000 bills were introduced. That's a lot of unnecessary and costly printing. That's why I introduced the Stop the Overprinting Act to save both time and money. This bill is a near mirror image of the legislation I introduced last year in H.R. 4640. Keeping with the initial intent to strictly end the wasteful practice of printing copies of legislation for members. However, note this bill will not hinder the daily operation of the House, the archiving process, or affect the transparency that this Congress has made a priority. And this legislation will lead us to significant savings each and every year, money that can be used, frankly, for better uses. With technological advancements, we have become a paperless world. It is a waste of taxpayer dollars to automatically print and send multiple unsolicited copies of something that is readily available online. Should a member's office truly need a printed copy, they will still be available in the document rooms and also in the committees. Too many people in Washington don't.
Yield an additional 4 minutes to the gentleman from New York.
The gentleman is recognized for additional 4 minutes.
Thank you. Too many people in Washington don't seem to care about the dollar amount unless it has a B or a T after it. And that's the type of mentality that needs to change here in Washington and was mandated in the November elections. We need to be looking for cost savings and turning over every possible rock. With our current deficit, there should be no such thing as spending cuts just being a drop in the bucket. Every dollar and every cent counts, and in the real world, it should here too. The money we spend here in Congress is not ours, it's the people's. House Republicans have been stressing this for some time, and together we proposed over $155 billion in cuts in savings for taxpayers in the 111th Congress through the U-Cut initiative alone. Through this program, Americans asked Congress to support spending cuts on a wide variety of issues, including the end of the Stimulus Advertising Act, which would have eliminated the unneeded highway signs notifying the public of stimulus-funded projects. With no real purpose, tens of millions of dollars could have been saved. Also considered were proposals requiring federal employees to pay back taxes, stopping the cycle of bailouts, and putting Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back on budget. The American people have spoken loudly. We must get our fiscal house in order. While previous efforts to curb wasteful spending were not successful, I am hopeful that under our new leadership, we will have far better results. I'd like to thank the leadership for their support in working to implement laws that will reform flawed aspects of our government and save taxpayer dollars, be it a dollar, a million, or a billion. I am encouraged by the fact that the new majority is listening to the will of the people to eliminate inefficiency and waste. Passing the Stop the Overprinting Act today is an important step in beginning this process. I urge all my colleagues to support this common sense bill, and with that I yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time. The gentlelady from California.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wonder if you could please clarify which version of the bill is before the House.
All right. Gentleman from Mississippi, have a Chair understands that the motion is to suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended. Is that correct?
That is correct. We would like to substitute the text for this H.R. 292 as amended.
Okay. Would the gentleman submit a copy of what he intends to?
I will, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I will support this bill in the form now before the House. It certainly bothers me to see multiple copies of bills in our office's recycling bins every day. Too many bill copies waste time, trees, and taxpayer dollars. The gentleman is right to examine this matter and try to effect a reduction if appropriate. This amended bill represents a vast improvement from the original version. Concerns were raised about the original bill's possible adverse effect on the clerk's staff and others who labor in support positions inside the House and Senate. So I commend the gentleman for listening to concerns and making sensible changes. As we consider this bill, we must remember that our democracy doesn't work well without transparency in government. Nobody wants to disrupt the legislative process inadvertently or to make it harder for any Americans to read the bills. Although we can't forget that while many Americans still do not have adequate access to the Internet, all congressional offices certainly have the ability to obtain their own bill copies when they need to. So this bill rightly maintains public access to important documents while saving the people's money. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 292, the STOP Act, which ends the automatic overprinting of bills and resolutions by the Government Printing Office for distribution to members of the House of Representatives and Senate. I'd also like to thank Ranking Member Brady and Chairman Lundgren for their support on this matter. Mr. Speaker, let me emphasize that this bill is not a criticism of the GPO, nor its hardworking employees. The GPO does, and does well, what Congress directs it to do. We're simply looking for ways and opportunities to reduce the cost of government. Since its establishment in 1860, the GPO has been the printer of record for our congressional record, committee reports, the well-respected Constitution annotated, the Federal Register, and many other historic and necessary documents that this institution and our government need to do our collective work. But, Mr. Speaker, in this 112th Congress, well into the 21st century, in an age of iPads and Kindles and BlackBerries and iPhones, it is simply no longer necessary to require excess printing and the delivery to our office of thousands and thousands of pages of bills and resolutions which simply end up in the trash. Mr. Speaker, H.R. 292 is another step in this majority's continued commitment to reducing unnecessary government spending, addressing our deficit and debt, and finding greater efficiencies within our governmental offices and agencies. With over 8,000 bills and resolutions introduced in the 111th Congress and multiple copies of each distributed to members, eliminating this unnecessary printing and wasteful spending is a small but productive first step, and we will continue to look at other House operations for ways in which we might further reduce the cost of government. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a common-sense measure which prudently adjusts our modern-day mechanisms of government to the times in which we live. I might also add that there will be an environmental benefit as well. With reduced energy and paper needs, the GPO's demand for paper and our resources will be reduced by this act, helping us continue our commitment to be better stewards of our environment, our natural resources, and of course our House operations. As we promised in the Pledge to America, and as we have promised here on the floor during these initial days of the 112th Congress, and as we tangibly verified by our Transparency Enhanced Rules package, our bipartisan vote to trim Congress's budget, and now through this bill, this Republican majority is committed to fiscal stewardship, to having a hawkish and relentless eye towards waste and inefficiency, and a continued commitment throughout this 112th Congress to reduce spending, create private sector jobs, and challenge ourselves not just in word and rhetoric, but more importantly in action and meaningful legislation. Mr. Speaker, this bill, introduced by my good colleague from New York, should garner overwhelming bipartisan support, and I thank him for introducing it and for his commitment to a more responsible and efficient stewardship of taxpayer dollars. I urge all of my colleagues to support this matter, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I urge an aye vote and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time. Gentleman from Mississippi.
Okay. May I inquire if the gentlelady from California has any...
Gentlelady's yielded back all the time.
Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
All time having been yielded, the question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 292 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended.
Mr. Speaker, on this I ask for the yeas and nays.
Without objection. Yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking the yeas, take this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. Number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of the Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the House will stand in recess till subject to the call of the Chair.